Looks like so.
David Shynock, you ready to go?
Always.
All right, let's do it.
I have, by the way, some after the show, we're going to be opening some March of the Machine set boosters for those that enjoy that content. Hey, David is here. David, where are you calling from?
New York City. How you guys doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Same old, same old. Another Monday.
What do you want to talk about on the show?
I want to mention that we need to just give up about caring about online viewership and focus on expanding the LCS roadshows and growing local audiences.
All right, go ahead. And then, Mark, you're going to start this one off.
Am I starting this one off, Travis? I think you're passionate about
You
this.
pulled this one, so you're going to start it off. But David, go ahead and explain why we shouldn't care about online viewership and instead should care about very expensive, uneconomical roadshows.
You say uneconomical, but I'm going to show you a way to profitability on it. First and foremost, in regards to online viewership, quite honestly, I don't know if there's any change that we can make that will ultimately fix or get viewership back to where people quite frankly want it to be. I just think it's going to stagnate to where it eventually stabilizes, maybe down 15 or 20% more than where we're at right now. So growing online viewership is not going to be the way to do it. The way in my eyes is by activating with local audiences, specifically colleges. You have a bunch of different colleges around the United States that have facilities that not only have esports facilities and equipment already there that you can borrow and lend, but you just have smaller stadiums that are going to be good for a crowd, that you can get out and activate more audiences around the US. Because I think getting the product in people's hands and getting them exposure to the LCS, to League of Legends, even if they've heard of the game, they might not have been to the esport, or giving parents a chance to take their kids as well, is going to be the way that you can grow long-term fandom and get people invested into the game beyond just watching it online. Because I think anybody that's been to an event can attest to the fact that it is better to watch in person than it is to watch alone on your couch or even with your friends in Discord.
I pulled this one, Travis, because it's also the Khan take. I don't know if you know who that guy is, Wrath of Khan on Reddit, but every single thread that comes up, no matter what it's about, he's like, I think what we need to do to get more international success is to actually have more road shows would actually be better for international success.
Wrath of Khan and David both have this disease where they have like a bulletin board next to them with 5 different ideas, and then in any Reddit thread, David doesn't do this on Reddit, but Khan does it, where it's like there'll be a news where it's like, by the way, guys, Immortals is bringing treats in, and suddenly Khan will be like, and this is why the LCS viewership, blah, 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 and then it gets upvoted because he's really good at writing about it.
So do you want me to go first? Do you want to go first?
I'll go first. Okay.
All right, I mean, whatever you want.
David, how did you change the economics? You didn't mention economics, but go ahead and explain to me why this is economically viable.
First and foremost, when you're partnering with colleges, you are reducing the amount of cost that you're probably going to assume, because your response, as it has been historically, is that we have to transport basically the entire LCS studio because that's what they use for the road shows. By partnering with colleges, you reduce some of that cost and allow the facilities that they have there to be of your benefit. In addition to that, you're also opening up additional revenue streams, which is the biggest problem that the LCS has right now, where we're entirely reliant upon sponsorships. You start getting more ticket sales, food and beverage deals, merchandising as well. I know the LCS just launched their own apparel line at finals this past split, but if you can start doing individual apparel drops for the different road shows, you open up different revenue streams that, yes, might be a little bit of a hit at first, but as you grow them over time, you can eventually get it to the point where, okay, you understand where to cut costs in certain corners, where you can maximize others, and get each individual roadshow to just be its own profitable entity itself.
I do not think that you will hit the scale where ticket sales and merch sales will cover the cost of moving around all of the players, all the associated staff, and all of the Riot folks that need to go around for this stuff. And while college clubs and colleges do have some equipment, it is nowhere near what you need to bring to these events in order to actually put on a compelling show. Unless you're going to go like Evo style, where you just have a couple of shitty projectors. It's just not, like, logistically, it's nowhere near what you... Like,
yeah.
It just doesn't work out.
And to that point too, whatever online viewership hit that you're saying is hand waveable away because ticket sales to 150 people at a college, that is not even in the ballpark of like what sponsorship deals bring in.
Actually, that's a good question. How much do you expect? Like, how many tickets do you expect to sell at these things, David?
Give or take about 1,000 to 1,500 at most. I'm not saying big arenas. I'm saying theaters, small gym or smaller scale gymnasiums, more similar to those that have watched Call of Duty, the size of what COD champs will be at the University of Las Vegas gymnasium.
Okay, so let's say $1,500 a ticket. How much do you sell those tickets for?
Realistically, $50 a piece, and any that you don't sell, I'm giving away to college kids for free.
Okay, so if you I would be very surprised if you can sell 1,500 tickets for $50. But let's say you do. You make $75,000.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think it costs to
turn on the LCS for a single day?
Yeah.
Somebody would have to give me a number because I have no clue.
It's a lot of money, but even just costs associated with, like, it cost me, what was it? It was something like 20 grand to do TGI Worlds Tour last year, and that was just like me and a handful of people in really small venues. Like, it's just not going to break out. And if you're charging all these people $50, then you're going to limit how much you're going to get on merch sales, especially if these are on college campuses where people don't have like a ton of money. I'm sure you have some engineers and stuff from certain areas to come through there, but like the economics of this, I just really don't think work.
No, especially when you start considering like the actual production value. Like, the thing that makes the LCS and like set venue locations great is that you have the same setup every single day. And even then we have tech issues. Like, you start going to venues where you have no quality control over the equipment that you're bringing, unless you are bringing the equipment, which then offsets your whole point about having venues that have equipment brought in. One, like, you're going to have people playing on different mice and keyboards. You're going to have to bring servers. Like, people compare this to like road shows for like touring bands, but I'm sorry, the scale of what's like going on here is different. Like Travis's point about the overall number of people you need to like bring, that there's 50 players, a couple coaches, all the talent, camera ops, league ops, like anything that you're going to need to bring that like these places aren't going to have. You're going to have different quality products across the board. And then you're going to try and pitch that to sponsors, but they don't know what they're going to get on any given day. The online product is going to be terrible as you go back to like massive delays and audio issues and whatever you're going to have. Like, no offense to the Mr. Beast tournament, I had fun watching it, but like, that's like the production you get a lot of the times in these like more amateurish setups, you know, like they're not good.
Amazon putting it on.
So, okay, well, to respond to that,
like, my point is just like, there's so many problems that you're going to have with this idea. It's not just like finals weekend every weekend. Like, you know, that's nowhere close. Like, not even in like, you are several steps down from that if you were going to do like a road show. And even then, I don't even think the costs ever make sense.
So my question then would be, if you're saying that the quality of these is going to go down, how is Call of Duty able to do 5 of these in a shorter period of or a shorter stretch of time, and the quality is maintained all throughout?
Wait until you hear about Overwatch League. There's a lot of people doing a lot of very ambitious stuff in the space. I don't know if
Call of Duty's been doing it since 2007, to be fair, and they arguably toured more back in the older, or from 2007 until they franchised in 2018.
You're talking about like MLGs?
Yeah.
Yeah, so MLGs were running. MLG is not what the LCS should aspire to be. Those were in convention centers. The very first event I worked at, I was a stage host for an MLG, and League of Legends was in a corner with a tiny stage. The players were playing on fold out tables next to the stage, and they had me like doing an interview from the pit where people could barely see me because the lighting was so bad. And they're in these giant convention halls where there's very little branding on fold-out chairs that are super uncomfortable, and everybody complained every MLG, but they understood that it was like, okay, well, this is esports and it's this tiny little thing, and like maybe one day it'll grow into something big. I don't think that MLG roadshows are the path to profit. And by the way, the other thing MLG did was they charged people money to watch HD video, and that was one of their major revenue sources, was charging people for
Paywalls.
Yeah, paywalls and stuff like that. So, like, even then, I don't think that they were making a ton of their money off of these convention center events.
Well, and like, unless I'm wrong, how much of that, like, didn't teams pay their way there?
Yeah.
Right? Like, the thing that you're forgetting, again, with comparisons to MLG and tournaments, is you're often, like, not necessarily paying for 50 plus people in this one day event to show up and play 1 day of games or 2 days of games.
That event was, I was flown to Rhode Island, and I was put in a hotel room with 3 Halo people who just LAN partied all night while I slept in my bed and did my best to sleep before I had to work the show. And I was paid $400 for that weekend. And it was the coolest thing ever because I got to go work at an MLG, and I was super happy to do it.
And to be fair, this is not a shot at those, like, grassroots tournaments, because I love those grassroots tournaments. I have, like I said, I've done my own fucking events. Like, I talked about, like, the fucking Pokemon tournament in my house. I'm not kidding. I really did that. But, like, there's a difference when you're talking about running this as a multi-billion-dollar company that Riot is, and trying to be, you know, this premier product, and, like, these experiences. And those experiences are valuable in their own right, but, like, you know, if you're talking about how to save NA, like, at this point, you're just actually kind of punting and saying, like, we don't think this, like, franchise league doesn't exist anymore. Now we're going back to the old days. Is kind of like what you're saying. And it's like, okay, but like, it's actually just a really different, like, paradigm at that point.
Not exactly. You guys are very much focusing on the old days of that. I'm saying even when you go into Black Ops 3 and later days, where even when it went back to Twitch, like, those aside, and when Esports Engine started taking over, you were still touring and doing those events. The ultimate point of all of this is to try and grow fandom at a grassroots level, which we are not currently doing for the LCS. And I don't see any way, without hitting the road more, that you start activating those communities, unless somebody has
how is moving the LCS a grassroots thing? Like, when I think grassroots, I think collegiate esports,
throw tournaments.
Yeah, like local
because
community stuff.
If you can start activating local communities. So say you have an event that is consistent. I mean, I'll use New York, even though I'm biased for it. I understand all of that. If you have an annual event here, even for just a super week of the LCS, if you combo that with other tournaments that are going on here locally, if you combo that with normal watch parties, you start developing a consistent LCS fan base here that you can consistently get money from, that these events will grow it. And then it's easier to say, okay, yeah, League of Legends is back here on this weekend each year. It's going to happen. And you start building, and those tickets become more sought after, and you just start growing fandom. Even if it's 10 more people than it was before, good, it's done its job.
I just feel like it's a little bit like, just draw the rest of the fucking owl whenever you say this stuff. Like, in terms of like, oh yeah, just do all this stuff. Like, how much? Okay, New York is your world. Like, LCS was there with a major international event for weeks on end. Mm-hmm. How much has it changed the face of New York esports since then?
I mean, honestly, we're still recovering from COVID, but numbers have been growing. We've held watch parties every other week this entire year, and they've been growing day by day.
Okay, and do you think that you couldn't have held those watch parties if it wasn't for Worlds being there?
No, we've had them consistently since 2017. This has been
I mean,
that's
forever. I don't know why you need, like, Khan is in the chat, who we referenced earlier, and was like, get LCS out of LA, lol. Like, I always feel like, okay, I like roadshows. I want to be clear here. I like roadshows. It is very, like, affirming, quite frankly, for me as a person who creates content, to go to these things and meet people in person and, like, have these cool moments and have somebody's like, this is my first event. I don't want this to be perceived as like Mark and I hate roadshows. I think the challenge is that, like, there is not much evidence to me that, for instance, Rathacon says LCS needs to actually get back to trying to grow a community through live events. Online is not building any community. Like, the stuff that built LCS esports or League of Legends esports was the online viewership. Like, it wasn't like, wow,
yeah, this is a backwards interpretation of
season 1 went to Jönköping, Sweden, and they held their finals at DreamHack. And after that, everyone became a huge League of Legends fan in fucking Jönköping, Sweden, and it spread like a virus throughout Sweden. And then that viewership, that became a thing where LEC was able to exist. No, what happened was they had over 100,000 viewers watch season 1 finals, well, over much more than that, but at a time, people were like, wow, this viewership is really good online. More and more people started tuning into live viewership. It wasn't IPL and Vegas and the like small audience that was there in Vegas that activated League of Legends esports. It was the content on the broadcast and seeing Christina V do Riven impressions and Reggie awkwardly running off and us doing
and listen to Bubble Pop for 12 hours
and an awkward Hotbid Loco Doco interview. Like all these different things that that really grew the sport, and that was all content that was being positioned online that drew people in. It wasn't like, oh golly gee, now we've got IPL and 400 people in the audience, and now Vegas esports is going to blow up, and that's going to grow League of Legends esports. Like, do I think Riot could do more to activate in cities and do cool things, and could the teams to be doing that? Yes, but I don't think that like the road shows are the way to do it. The road shows are there to serve as moments where you can create a peak for the league, where you're able to say like, we're going to Raleigh, who's going to make it to Raleigh? Like the fact that Golden Guardians made it to play on stage in Raleigh, their first time they ever did that was a big moment. I actually think that if they just get to play on stage in random college arenas every couple of weeks or whatever, that is actually detracting from the value of these things. So I don't know.
I'll throw 3 things in here quickly. Number 1 is that like, to Travis's just draw the rest of the fucking owl, like without knowing the numbers, like without like, the devil's always in the details, right? Like if you don't know how negative such an operation would run you, then you don't even see the reason why not to do it. So it's like very easy to then justify it because you don't even know what you don't know, right? Like, this is how we're going to do it. It's like, great, it doesn't make any logistical sense. It's like, I don't know the logistics anyways. Like that's a concern for like when you're pitching ideas. The second thing is people are always like, get the LCS out of LA. Like there's no benefits to the fact that like we are using a Riot owned building in this area where there's like all this Riot infrastructure that they have specifically built to be like their campus and stuff like that. Like the LCS arena from like a real estate standpoint is like a pretty good deal for them. They can like run all this stuff through there. And I feel like I don't know a ton about the entertainment industry. I'll own that one, but like there's a lot of talent around here. Like for people who actually run cameras and know like live production of shows and stuff like that. Like so like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like maybe moving to somewhere else cheaper makes sense, especially like with the servers in Chicago. Like there's a lot of questions around that, but like I feel like people just go, LA is the most expensive city in the world, and don't look at like anything else. You know,
don't realize London's the most expensive city in the world.
It's San Francisco. We went over this. It's San Francisco
Actually,
and Singapore.
New York City passed all of them this past winter.
Poggers.
Yeah.
Anyways, point is like
New York City and do an event.
like I'm not saying, so here's what I'm saying. I'm not saying there's no cons to being in LA, but I'm also saying that people never acknowledge the pros to like why it's here in the first place a little bit. So like, you know, that one's more debatable to me, but I think at least I have to devil's advocate for its existence in LA a little bit. And then the third thing I was going to say is the thing that people often say all the time is like, well, we can't just keep doing the same thing. We can't just keep hosting it in LA. And it's like, that is such a flatlining of everything going on in the ecosystem to just say that we're doing the same thing. Because I would argue that there's been a number of decisions that might be hurtful or harmful to the product or something, you know, like crazy idea. Was this viewership change a good idea or not? That was definitely not the same thing we did last year, guys. Like, I think you can look at these kind of decisions and separate them into different categories and try and see like what's causing the problem. So like, I think this is something a lot of people do. It's just like the LCS has done the same thing for 4 straight years. And it's like, no, 3 years ago we were online. 2 years ago we did this like weird made by many thing, and we were like all over the days. Like we were Friday, Saturday, Sunday sometimes, or was it Saturday, Sunday, Monday? Like who even fucking knows? We also made summer splits or spring splits record carryover to summer split, which had the biggest negative impact in a single split of viewership we've ever seen percentage wise. Like I think that matters. Hey, then we seem to be maybe getting a groove last year towards the end of summer. I don't know. It seemed like sentiment was turning around. And then we had a bunch of very unpopular decisions in the community's opinion, and viewership's down this year. Like, these are all things that are going on in the ecosystem. And it's not like we just sat in LA with our thumb up our ass and nothing good or bad was happening around it. You know, it's not like we literally did the same thing year over year. So like that is again just a total misrepresentation of the ecosystem. And when people make arguments like that, when people say we've done the same thing every year, it doesn't make me think you're right. That makes me think you're either straw manning the situation or like oversimplifying it, or you don't understand the situation, which is like neither one of those makes me like compelled to engage in this topic, because it doesn't seem like you actually, not you, I'm not saying you, by the way, David.
No, I understand.
I'm speaking more generally here. That like when people make this argument in this way, it's like this doesn't compel me because I don't think you understand the complexity of the situation.
I'll also say that like what got me into esports was not a viewing party. What got me into esports was watching esports online. And I know that there are probably some people that go to live events and they get converted, and I think it can be really great. But I think that choosing to focus on in-person in a digital age around a global sport where people are able to watch it online for free as we're heading into a recession or whatever people want to talk about.
As on average, your viewership was 40 to 50% European anyways, when it was on weekdays.
When roadshows, whenever in the early days of LCS, EU, and NA, roadshows actually showed decreased viewership when they did them. I just don't. It's really hard for me to understand why that would be a good idea.
Can we at least agree on this compromise? If there are going to be 3 splits of LCS, there should be 3 road shows for finals.
I agree with that.
Okay.
No disagreements there. If only because like the European finals in winter felt weird. It just was like, oh, we're here now.
They should not call like I would hate to lose. Like I will be vocally frustrated if us moving to 3 splits, if that ends up happening, will make us lose one of our live events. Like I will just be like, are you kidding me? We're gonna like the whole point of the COVID stuff was like it feels really bad to have a finals where like you're just in the same space. And so I'll be very annoyed. But would I be surprised if that's what Riot tries to do? No, because they've already done it in Europe.
Well, and this brings us back to what Travis says. Like neither Travis, despite how much we've argued about it in this call, like Travis and I are not opposed to road shows in general. It was more the sustainable economics of road shows as a replacement for the LCS. That's the contention point. But like both of us like road shows, meeting fans. I think it is a good way to like. I think, despite what Travis said about like a lot of us get hooked because of the online stuff, I think a fair number of people also have a memorable experience at an in-person show that's really cool and they become fans. Like
it deepens fandom for sure.
That's what I was gonna say. My philosophy is not that you're not gonna get as many people to watch the LCS at a road show for their first time and automatically fall in love with it. I think the road shows are meant like you will end up liking the product by watching it online, and you will then fall in love with it by seeing it in person. And I think that's the natural progression of it.
I would be surprised if this, like, here's the reason I'm a little worried that they won't do 3 road shows for LCS next year is because they're also going to do, I mean, presumably if this ends up being the case, they would do 3 international events. And so I'm like, we're going to go from 4 travel moments to 6. That would just be a lot. And I mean, that would be fun and interesting, but I worry a little bit about how much they'll manage that stuff. So we'll see.
Well, and since we're talking about the European one just a little bit, like the fact that they had to turn their studio on for an extra day, was that some of the costs that had to get eaten up for a live event and why they only did one this year?
I really hope we don't do 3 days of LCS next year. But I guess we'll find out next time on Pokemon.
On Hotline League.
Thank you so much, David, for the call. Anything you want to shout
out? Shout outs to all the sponsors of Hotline League. Shout out to Numi. Congratulations on the role within FlyQuest. That's a big deal and a big game for not only the organization, but
they poached her.
Yep. And
she instead of doing free community work for us, she got a job?
Oh no, she got paid. It was not.
Oh, we paid her?
Yeah. I believe in paying people. No, she's going to keep doing stuff with us. So she said she's going to keep doing stuff with us, and then she's nowhere to be seen tonight. So
What? She was in chat, or she said something at the start in Discord.
She was in subtopics, so I know she was there at the beginning.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see her in the mod list right now on Twitch, so.
I don't believe in paying people. I'm an OG esports enthusiast. If you don't give me your first 1,000 hours free, you're probably not going to make it in this business.
Hustle culture at
So
its
Mark,
finest.
given that, you and I should have a conversation about our relationship.
Bro, I'm pretty sure I gave you way more than 1,000 hours.
And I paid you
Already.
for those. I paid you for each and every one of those. So when
I don't know.
I have a backlog of credit that I have.
I don't know. If we go back to those first days, was I invoicing you for Hotline League when it was you, me, and Kelby? I don't think I was.
I think so, because I think we had a different PC sponsor for those shows. We did.
I'm not sure.
We did.
Kelby says nope, so I'm going with Kelby. You didn't pay me.
I wasn't paying Kelby, but I was paying. Kelby doesn't know what I was paying. I was giving you some of the revenue.
I was the only one not getting paid.
Yeah, Kelby was not getting paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kelby, want to come back on the show for free, by the way?
I tried to get him on tonight for free, and he says, no, I got to play Total War Warhammer because of the new DLC that just dropped. So I tried to get him on because I figured him talking about esports winter stuff is good. But he's available for the chat. He says, my campaign is amazing. Kelby, I wish you could put much effort into making sure that I got campaigns with sponsors. All right. Thank you so much, David, for the call. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
Good
If
topic.
you want to see my portion of this, catch it on YouTube. David Shynock.
See ya.
Adios. All right, chat. Well, look, that's the nature of these topics. I didn't get in a lot of what I wanted to say. They kind of just went with it, which makes sense. That tends to happen. Like, I don't want to move the LCS from LA. I want it to be in LA the majority of the time because that's a major cost reduction. I don't want to shift to online. Like, I want all but like 6 weeks being in LA. That just is what it is. Overall, take wasn't the greatest. On my side, I probably could have put up somewhat better arguments, but I just wanted to keep it short and sweet and let them go on the topic because I know they have their own thoughts on it. So that was pretty much it.